Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another People Talk one-on-one special. As anybody who's been following my channel for the last few months will know, aside from the Sunday shows, which I do at 2 p.m. UK time, I've also embarked upon a couple of one-on-one specials. And they are special because of the people who I choose to do my one-on-one interviews with. We've spoken one-on-one to the Jamaican High Commissioner. We've spoken to Wendy Williams, the author of the Windrush Report. We've done one-on-one specials with Mr. Eddie Nestor, Angela Ma, and today I have a very, very huge pleasure to turn the tables on this lady, because when I say turn the tables, this lady is probably more accustomed to interviewing people herself. Um, she is very, very, very well known in circles, not just across the UK, but across the US and in the Caribbean. And she has, and I think it's clear to say, to be a big sister, a mentor to a lot of people, myself certainly included. So it is an absolute pleasure to welcome Ms. Sherry Ann Dixon to the Paul Lawrence one-on-one special. Hi, Sherry Ann.
Hey, hi, how are you?
I am very well indeed, very well. And look, thank you so much, because I know that with the time difference, I know it's very early in the morning for you. But I can see the Caribbean agree with you. Those who don't know, Sherry Ann is basking in the wonderful weather of Guyana, which is her home country. We'll talk about a little bit later. So I
Mhm.
just want to thank you so much for agreeing to be with me so early in the morning your time. It's a Saturday. Who knows what Sherry Ann Dixon might be up to? But for
Drinking
those,
coconut water, that's what I was doing.
oh no, Sherry, you can't have coconut water. Oh, geez, that's wrong, man.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're not sorry at all. Look, for those who don't know, because I know who you are and I've known you for a very long time. For those who don't know, give us a quick synopsis, your bio, as it were, of who Sherry Ann Dixon is.
Wow. It makes me feel old to talk about my bio, but I'll try. I'll praise it. I started off in PR, and while I was in PR, I realized that there wasn't enough people writing or talking about Black beauty in its perfection. And so I decided to target some of the big magazines at that time by saying to them, "You're wrong. No, we don't. Black women don't have thicker skin. We don't have all that we don't have." And um, then then they started calling me. So I went off and I did a course, as you do, for 2.5 years for cosmetology, so that I knew when I was writing that I couldn't be questioned, that I was right. So from that, I then worked for quite a lot of magazines, but the main one was Pride magazine. After working for a lot of European magazines, Pride magazine came for me at that time, probably about, I don't know, 15 odd years ago. And basically, started off with a being beauty editor. On the first day that I started, my target or the person I was asked to beautify was Lennox Lewis, and I had to make him look radiant, because he was tired. So that wasn't hard. So Lennox Lewis, and then it went on to quite a few well-known personalities. I loved that job, and I put a lot of energy into it because I knew how important it was to tell our people, or my people, how how to do lots of things. What should we eat? What skincare should we use? Why we should use moisturizer that had UV factors in it, because nobody was telling us that. They were telling us to use cocoa butter, and we were burning just like anybody else. So I moved on after 7 years from being beauty editor to being editor, and I lasted for 3 years and was then seconded to go off to the Caribbean to be editor in chief of Chic Caribbean. And I did that for 16 months. And while I was there, many of my friends were going through drama. Britain was moaning about life. And I found myself being the big auntie, as we call it, We didn't have Facebook at that time, so it was emails, and I realized that many of them were on crossroads. So when I came back to England after 18 months, I started a company called Women on the Crossroads, mainly targeting women because they were the ones moaning about all the crossroads that they were about to, or they're in or about to embark. And that started my company, Women on the Crossroads. Then I became a motivator, a lecturer of assertiveness training and confidence building. And now in my 60s, I've now used all those skills put together to, to be an empowerment, transformational coach, all the other things that I am as well.
Well, wow. All I can say to that is wow. But let's try and put a bit more bits on that, because right now you're speaking to me from Guyana,
Yeah.
and that's where you're from. That's where you're born. Am I right?
Yes, I was born in Guyana. And when I was 9 years old, then, as the family does, there was political strife here at the time. And they decided that they wanted to go and live in England. That was around the Windrush time. They were asking really qualified people to come and work in England. And my family, along with many people from the Caribbean, more from Jamaica, I think, though, went to England to work there.
And what was your experiences like? 9-year old, 9, 10, 11. What were your experiences like? A little brown skinned girl in London. What was that like for you?
Well, I sighed at the end of that last sentence because the memories came back. I don't think that they knew what they were going to. I remembered living in Cheltenham Road in Clapham North, and they all lived in one house. Now in Guyana, where I live, my grandmother had a beautiful little cottage. Everybody had their own rooms with the comfy cushions and the nice. I lived good in Guyana, and then went to England, and people were living in rooms, individual rooms. And it was all the family in the same house, those massive houses where one big door, but it went off into two. Um, I don't know what you call them now, but massive houses that went to about 3 or 4 story high. And Uncle Duke was over there, and Auntie Shirley was over in the other side across the corridor. And it was like that as it went up the tiers. And lots and lots and lots of people lived like that when I went there, which was a bit of a shock that we were all bundled up like that. But then you have to remember that no blacks, no dogs, no Irish signs were on many of those houses. So people had to rent and make do with their little square. So a front room could be a front room divided into a front room and then at the back a bedroom. It
Oh,
was just
geez.
different. Yeah.
I hear you. So what was it like, outside of the family home? What was it like in school and so on?
Well, the family home was, I have to say, as much as the younger people listening would think that it was miserable, in fact, it was joyous because everybody cooked, everybody in the house cooked, and everybody gave each other a pot. So you could imagine there's Jamaican, African, Indian, everybody was a family because we were all in the same place. So I was this 11-year-old little girl, 10, I think 10, little, going to school, walking down school in a Caribbean way, perfect white socks, everything's white. They don't do, Caribbean people didn't do cream at that time. And I remember walking down the road going to school in Clapham, and this ginger hair boy was riding slow and looking at me. And you're just thinking as girl boy, not thinking color. And he looked at me and he was smiling away. And then I smiled back, probably my back went up because I don't think we thought color. There's a little white boy on a bicycle. I was just thinking ginger hair. And he turned around and he said, when he caught himself liking this little black girl, then he said, go back home, wog, you know,
Wow.
and all the other things that came with it. And I remember carrying on that walk to school, being in shock, being really in shock, almost in tears, because I never assumed that somebody would say these horrible words. I remember that. I remember going to school. The teachers on reflection, would speak in a derogatory tone. Because I remember one teacher used to talk about her house, and it was a semi-detached house, and all the things that she was talking about was no relevance to these young black girls that were in the school. And she would say, well, you lot wouldn't know, wouldn't know about living in a semi-detached house. And they would say these awful things, but we weren't in a position to answer back, because we didn't, well, my family didn't live in Morden. And so I didn't realize until years later, I think, that somebody told me that's not a detached, semi-detached house. That was an end of terrace. And I was like, oh, okay. So that felt good. But in school itself, I wouldn't say that the teachers weren't pushing us forward, but they did not put many black girls forward for O levels, or we would
Yeah.
get to, maybe some of them would get to O levels, but basically we did CSEs, and then we were more or less pushed into going to work, and the work wasn't always a bank or a big financial institution. So I remembered when I was doing my CV, and I was, we had to do it in a class, and the teacher saw that I was writing off to NatWest Bank, and her saying, Sherry Bowlers, because my surname is Bowlers, Sherry Bowlers, I don't know why are you writing off to them? Because you're not going to get a job like that. And at the rate you're going, because you can't do maths, because I hated maths, they said, you will end up sweeping the streets of London. And I remember thinking, my mom, who died a few years after I reached England, she would be very disappointed to think that I was sweeping the streets of London. And my auntie that I was living in wouldn't have it. She'd probably slap the black off of me if she thought that that's what I was going to do. And basically, I still applied. And do you know what? I got that interview. And when I went for the interview, all the other girls who were white, no blacks, were doing the typing and shorthand test. But I didn't do it. The lady just looked at me, and she said, I like your deportment, what they call deportment, which was sitting up properly, no apologizing, that thing that I teach now in confidence building. She said, I really like how you said. She gave me the job. And that job was at NatWest Bank in Sloane Square.
Wow.
Paul,
You see,
that was a big thing.
it's funny because I was just talking to someone about my early days here in the UK, and me not understanding the sort of struggles that someone who had come to the UK a lot earlier. I came when I was in my mid 20s, and
Mhm.
I had, for me, my entire education was done in Jamaica. That's what I knew. And I was very unsympathetic to a lot of the people who had grown up here, who would have suffered from that sort of racism that you just described, but they would have suffered it without the sort of background that you had. Because even
Yeah,
at 11, you would have had a bit of a grounding back home from Guyana about who you were, what you were capable of, and so on. It may not be the full article, but you would have had that. These were people who knew nothing else. They knew nothing else but to be told they weren't good enough. And if they didn't have the right sort of parents, that
mhm,
could stick very, very, very easily. That way of thinking could stick. And I think it sort of indicates why a lot of our community remain not behind, but catching up, and are still there trying to catch up. But those early experiences that you had, Sherry, tell us about how they formed and how they created the woman that we now know.
I love that question. Do you know, when I was growing up with my grandmother, who was Miss Hoity Toity, because she was a seamstress and she sewed for many well-to-do people. So she was a bit uppity, is what we would call it. And she was a believer in don't ever say, you must never say never. She said never was in, or don't is in the Fool's Dictionary. So I grew up always understanding that I was good enough. It might have been put over in different words, but I was good enough. There's nothing that you can't do. Never allow anybody to put you down. So even although I was going through all those things at the time, which I don't know if it bothered me, I think it was just I think I just found these people arrogant because I always felt that I could get through the door. I always had that belief that came through my grandmother and my auntie to say, you can do it because you're bright. You get A's in everything. You do well, you speak well, you walk well because they taught you that. So I think the grounding, my point is the grounding came from in the home. The grounding came from my grandmother and my auntie, whereas while we're going through these prejudices, while the elders in my community were still, although they were nurses, doctors, teachers, big jobs, they basically were still having to do morning cleaning and stuff like that to make ends meet. So I was able to observe it from where I came to what I was seeing then. And I think my mission in life was I will do better. I will do better, or nobody can tell me no. So I think that everything I did as I grow up, I always made sure that I can do better and I'll get through the door. And I think that was the making of the Sherry Ann Dixon that you see now. There was never a never. If there's a never, it's because I didn't kick fast enough. I didn't kick hard enough because I made it happen for me. I think you have to have that nobody can mess with me kind of business.
Have to, I relate to so much about what you say when we talk about having that grounding where you think anything is possible,
Mm-hmm.
and you're grounded in that sort of thinking. So we've talked a little bit about that, but the Sherry Ann Dixon I know, I didn't know you in your Pride magazine days. I knew you when you were on Bang Radio. I knew you when you were doing a lot of the talking, when you did your talks, your motivational speaks. And I also I remember, and I quote this very, very often whenever I talk about you. I remember you using this phrase about sending the ladder back down.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about? And what's driven you to that sort of an ethos? And explain to the people who may not understand what the ethos behind that is.
While I was at Pride, thank you for reminding me about that, Paul, because sometimes I forget that I do these things. When I was at Pride, many of the people that I interviewed always, I felt that they sent either the elevator back down or the ladder back down, push the ladder back so somebody can catch it and come back up. I interviewed Nelson Mandela. Um, and I thought that was big. That was a big thing. When you're interviewing people and you're crying behind the eyes, because I felt that man, after all he went through, he's still worried about people. In the interviews, they said things like, or he said things like, didn't have time to worry about having a breakdown, or I couldn't sit in there crying because I had things to do. I had things that I needed to write things. I used to write it on rice paper and they stitch it into clothes that people wore when they were leaving. So they send messages out to the community. The man was telling me the reason that he couldn't be soft, and that he always thought about the people for the future, what's going to happen to them. So that's one of the people. My Angelou said to me, Sherry Dixon, use your power.
Hold on. You can't just drop in. Mary Angelo said to me. Yeah. She
Maya,
just,
like Maya said to me.
your sister in.
I would love to say that, Maya said to me, you have to use your power because you have a powerful force. It's an energy that you don't even realize in yourself that you have. So I remember that. Um, who else? Alice Walker, all these different people that I was interviewing for Pride, Pam Greer, at Bang. All those people have told me that I have a power and I should use it.
And you
And
were
so
true to that. You were true to that because
I felt that I needed to send that little elevator back down for the women. I think I always say women. And why do I always say women? Obviously, I'm not being prejudiced against men, but I think it's because my grandmother, my mother, my auntie were all strong women. And I say it's on their shoulders that I stand. So I do the same. I don't have daughters, I have two sons. So I maybe say that to the women that I was mentoring and motivating through Pride magazine being a woman's magazine.
Yeah,
I
but
think
you know what? No one could accuse you of only helping women, because I have had several conversations with you which have helped to direct my thinking and the things that I have gone on to do, whatever little they may be. So I
no,
don't
those
think
ideas.
you're in any danger. I don't think you're in any danger of anybody accusing you of being sexist. But you know where we are now, you know, you had women in the crossroads, you've done that, but if we fast forward to now, you're in Guyana. You know, most of us know. What was the motivation between returning to Guyana?
Okay. My auntie died when I was 47, and I remembered coming back here to sort out my grandmother's legacy. And while I was doing that, while I was here, it's actually quite nice here, because you know when you grow up in England, you're thinking, oh, I can't be bothered to go back to what you think is a third world country. Everywhere you go is either America, because all my sisters are living there, or Canada, or anyway, first, what they call first world. And it was the first time coming back, or second time come back to Guyana, and I actually quite liked it. And I sort of thought, I wonder what it'd be like to live there. So I came back a few times on holiday, and each time I came back, the more and more I liked it. I like the freedom of the way people are. I like the fact that I can hear an accent that I grew up with, you know, because if you're from, say, from Jamaica, for example, I just use Jamaicans, you're used to hearing people around you with a similar accent, but there are not many Guyanese there, or I didn't go to the places they were. So I didn't grow up hearing that accent all the time. So it was nice to be in a place where everybody spoke with the same dialect. And then 2017, I was in England, and you know, that was the time, I think that was the beginning of the Depression. People were moaning and groaning about any and everything. And that was the time when I think it was a London Bridge, and they were some guys were going around chopping up people and killing them. I don't know if you can remember around that
Oh,
time. It
yes, I
was
do indeed.
good. Well, I remember I was in my bed watching the TV, and it was live. You could almost see people running around with blood and all this sort of thing. I was like, what am I doing here? I'm not happy. I remember saying, I am not happy. And I spoke to one of my cousins, and he said, well, where do you want to go? And I said, I just need a break. So we were gonna do it for 3 months, and I booked Barbados, not Guyana, you know, but Barbados for 3 months, and I went there and stayed in an Airbnb by myself for 3 months. And then when I was there, I started to realize how much I love the Caribbean. I felt free. I felt at ease there. I didn't even know I had a big following here. Stupidly, I didn't realize. And the first thing that I did in Barbados was to have somebody invited me to speak, and the place was packed. And I realized how my messages were transcending across the Caribbean. So then I came to Guyana, and I thought, oh, I've got to at least go there for a month, at least, or two. And when I got here, it was the same thing. People were asking me to speak. I did 2 sold out shows. I just couldn't believe it. I sort of thought 50 people come. And then it was like 150 the first one. And then the second one was a school that I think they held about two to 300 people. And that was sold out as well. Not just me and others. But I think I was the main person. And that was the deciding factor. I had more to give. And I think the people in London were starting to take a lot of that for granted. It was time to come home. And so I came now home. I came, it's 18 or 20 months. I don't know if I'll end up living here forever and ever, but right now this is home, and
So
I love it.
it's a great place to be now, and that's
Yeah.
really also a count. You know, you said that you've realized you were unhappy, you know,
Yes.
and I think for anybody, once we get to the point that they realize that they're unhappy, then that's a time to make some sort of change. Look, Sharon, look, it's been great talking so far. I think it's only right for me to ask you for a couple of tips for young ladies, young women,
Mhm.
yeah, or young people. But you know, I know your specialty is working with young women and mentoring young women who are
Mhm.
in the UK right now. They're sitting on multinational passports. what advice would you give to someone who they're struggling, they're divided between the hard work, the racism, the difficulties that we're all facing. Right now we're all on the COVID. You look so relaxed on the COVID while we're here, struggling left, right, and center. What advice would you give a young person? What's the sort of things that young women come to you about typically, and what's the sort of stuff you share with them?
My first point would be she who dares wins. She who dares wins. So that's been my mantra throughout my life. If I dare to do it, if I dare to partake, you can't moan if you don't take part. Don't join the gang of people who basically say can't, because how do you know that you can? So don't listen to the flock. Don't be a people follower. You try, because there is racism, but sometimes somebody out there is not as racist as the others, and they'll let you in. And if they let you in, then you become the one that becomes the leader of the next generation that will follow you. We can't do anything about racism. It's actually got worse. I think it's got worse. I think I grew up in the days of Enoch Powell. So now it's just, I think they're just blunt with it. At least he was the only bad one then, but now they're blunt with it. So you don't always have to fight back. You don't have to spend your whole life being angry. Know the journey that is coming. It is going to come, and there will be a difference, or you make a difference. That's what I always say to people. Stop thinking about he said this, she said that. Think about you. I'm going to go to university. It's free. Is it not free? School is free anyway.
University is not free anymore, Sherry-Ann.
Okay.
It's $9,000 a year.
Okay, but even $9,000 to go and do something, it's not every part of the world. I've got friends that's just gone to work in China. I've got friends who've just gone off to work in Italy. Some of us get through the door, and I want to be one of them that's getting through the door. Look, racism is everywhere. It's in your own country, but I'm diverting for a moment. So that's the first thing. She who dares wins. The next thing is understand your worth. Understanding your self-worth, because if you don't know what you're worth, then why should somebody else know what you're worth? You need to define you. And I define me by saying I am somebody. Don't be telling me I'm not anybody. Don't tell me I can't go off and study for a degree at 60. I can do whatever I want to do, because they take your money when you go to study for those degrees, don't they?
Absolutely.
I think they do. So if they do, study, get it. And if, okay, not everybody wants to study, but if you want to go off and do your own business, do the research and then go off and do your own business, because not everything is about racism. When people want something, they come to you for it. They might not want you in your house, but then you don't want to go in their house anyway, you got your own. So believe in yourself. Those are the two things that I would say. Believe in yourself and take chances. I have traveled the world. Well, not the whole world, but I've traveled to many, many places. And I have done that by myself. You don't always have to wait for the flock to do something. Book into a hotel and then you take your chance, as long as you're not going in anywhere dangerous, and you see the world. I've done the 2 or 3 wonders of the world. I can look back as a grown woman now and say, I've done many things. I have nothing to be sorry for, because, okay, now as I'm older, I'm now learning about my past, because I didn't grow up in the Caribbean. But if I didn't make the move to come and live here, I wouldn't learn about it. So I'm doing the last, I call, in my last semester of life, because I don't know how long we're going to live past 60 something in the way that life is going right now, but at least I've ticked all the boxes. So your vision board should be all the things that you want to achieve. Celebrate yourself. Stop hiding. Take a picture and say, yeah, this is me. My Facebook page is full of pictures of me being happy, me in this dress, me in this. Don't let anybody tell you, especially in Caribbean and Africa, sometimes people then tell you, you're such a show off. They try to
Yeah.
put you down. They dumb you down. Don't let anybody dumb you down. This is me. I wear lipstick in the day. I don't care. It's my lipstick. I bought it. So I want to wear lipstick. You've got people who will put their attitude over to you, onto you, and make you feel bad. I don't feel bad about nothing. If I want to wear sexy underwear, I wear sexy underwear. It's my money and I buy it. Do
It's almost too much information there for me, Sherry.
Sorry, but you're the interviewer, so I'm talking to the young girls. I'm talking to the young girls. Whatever you want to do. And when I say young girls, I could be talking to a 60-year-old right here.
It is about confidence, though. It is about self-confidence, and I think when I think at the what I call the condition of the UK black youth, both boys and girls, it is probably for those who struggle, it is about a lack of confidence. And when you do look at those who excel, it is notable that they have that confidence. No idea where it may come from for the different individuals, but that confidence tends to make the difference. So, Sherry, what are you doing now? Tell us about what you're doing now. We're coming to the end of this interview. What is Sherry Dixon occupying her time with now? And where do we see you and hear more about the work you're doing?
Okay. Well, when I came back, I thought I was going to be a retiree. Like I must have been dreaming, and I woke up. And what I started to do was motivate and mentor again women in the Caribbean. And I started this series called Be Awesome. There's two things I'm doing, but this Be Awesome one I started the first year I came because I decided that they need to know me. I'm going to leave that legacy, like Maya Angelou said, or should I say Maya said. And basically, I decided to do my motivational talk, and I booked the Marriott, and I just could not believe it. Again, packed audience. They had to pay their money to come, so they must have wanted to come, right? And so I did that. So I ticked that box. The second box is taking that Be Awesome around the world. But then COVID came. I went to Trinidad and I went to Grenada. So basically that's what I'd like to do. Continue that Be Awesome. You are who you are. That kind of motivational stuff, because the Caribbean really needs it. And the Caribbean women really need it, because I think that they apologize sometimes for life. The other thing that I'm doing is Let's Talk, the Let's Talk series, which really came out of sitting at home here in the Caribbean. And although I should have been finishing my book, I wasn't. And my son was talking to me one day, well, both of them. One said, Mom, why don't you do, webinars? And the other one said, Mom, why don't you do podcasts? And I can't be asked. I really can't. I'm just sitting there eating my mangoes. And then one day I just decided, okay, I don't like this Facebook Live business, because, I'm a critique. I'm like, some of them have got the cameras up their nose. I'm seeing their teeth, everything. I said, no, I don't want to do that. Don't want people laughing at me. But I did it one day. I just walked around the garden talking about all the different herbs in the garden. The different medicinal plants that a lot of the Caribbean people take it for granted, and it's right here. And in doing that, so many people were saying, oh, Sherry, you're so lucky. Oh, please do this again, that I started to do it. And I did my very first webinar. I'm sure I came to you for help, like, how do I do this? And you were saying, oh, don't use the iPad, but I couldn't sort out the computer. Anyway, I did my own thing. And yes, you could see up my nose, but you know what? On that day, I was so happy that I did that. I interviewed all my journalist friends, and the title of that first webinar was called The New Norm. How do we deal with the new norm? And that was the beginning. 21 weeks or 22 weeks later, I've now interviewed some fantastic people, including you, Paul Lawrence, and we talk.
Let's be clear. When Sherry says some fantastic people, it's a plethora of fantastic people. Sherry Ann's show comes on, what times is it? 4 o'clock UK time?
5 o'clock UK
5
time.
5 o'clock UK time, live on her page. And let me tell you something, it is just sit down worth watching. You know, I do a show at 2 o'clock UK time, and I always mention Cherry's show. This week, I think she has my friend Yvonne Witter, who's going to be
Yeah.
on the show this week. Um, and the caliber of people. And I have to tell you, Sherry Ann, because I do a show as well, I know how difficult it is to keep a certain caliber of people. And the
Yeah.
fact that you have been able to have three, sometimes four people at that level consistently demonstrates sort of respect that people have for you because they're
Yeah.
happy to come and share with you. They happen to be a part of what you're doing. So I just thought I'd point that out that this is not by accident that these people turn up for your show. It is out of respect for who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Paul. And you know what? The funny thing is when we do the show, and then I go back and read through the comments in the live feed, and then you can see some of the names of some people in there. I'm still going, oh, she listened. Oh my God, she listened. You know, you get some people in there that you just don't know that they're listening. And that's the feel good factor that you get. And I think in conclusion, even although I've interviewed so many big names, they can go on my website, all the W, SherryAnnDixon.com. And then you could read about the people I've interviewed. We've kept it nice and not talk about the list that goes on and on and on. But I think that to remain humble and to remain um, respect to everybody. I don't really, apart from one or two that get on my nerves, and you know when they do because I call you and like, what am I doing with these people? But mainly, I think it's about showing and giving respect, and it doesn't matter what they do in life. It's about always as you get older, giving respect and getting it back is a nice feeling.
Look, Sherry, it's been wonderful speaking to you. Um, I'm not going to pretend that we don't speak all the time. We speak quite regularly, whether directly or on WhatsApp. You know, Sherry Ann and I have a good dialogue that keeps going. But I'd like to just ask one last thing to wrap up what you're going to say. What's your wrap up to our viewers? This will be going out tomorrow, by the way, at 2 o'clock. I'm going to do it as a premiere tomorrow on the show. So tomorrow, the 20th of September. Um,
Yeah.
what's the last words? What's the last thing you have to share with our viewers?
I found every week I interview, I always think, oh my God, I can't beat this one. I can't beat this one. But I think this one's a good one. I was talking to the lovely Yvonne Witter, and I knew I wanted to interview her, but I couldn't work out what in what area because she's quite, you know, diverse in the things that she does. And then I realized that this is a black woman who basically travels to different parts of the world without fear. I think it's without fear. And she works abroad, you know, many places in Africa and I think, you know, over the China sort of area. And I wanted to know what was it like? I know what I'm doing working abroad, but I want to know about other women. How do they feel when they're having to go into an area that is not a place of their birth, dealing with people that speak other languages, and how does it work? And then I found, or she recommended Shakina, who's now gone to live
Gambia.
in in the cat in Gambia, right?
Yep.
And then Tonya McNeil, who basically even started a chambers, women chambers of commerce in India. But she started off by wanting to go and do some business in China and thought, oh, I don't want to go on my own. So she put it out there into the world. And the next thing you know, she's got 60 or odd women going with her to these conferences, meeting people across the other side. And so she's got a brilliant group of people. So 3 global entrepreneurs, I'll be speaking to them tomorrow, all black women. And the reason I say that is not based on prejudice, but the fact that we assume that they would have it the hardest, yet they're doing really well in working abroad. So that's what I'm doing tomorrow. Every week I have, and I put out questions on my page. Like, did you see that one, Paul? The one about can people really change their behavior? Um, would they would they always cheat? People, I said people. I didn't say men. Can they change their behavior?
Yes,
And
I
I
do
think
think I saw that one. Yeah.
and that's got a lot of people commenting on it, whether they think yes or no or never. And so we have Dr. Rail coming in about 2-3 weeks' time to talk about that. So I've got scientists that come in and talk about behavior therapy as well. So I think we've got a good formula there, and I hope to keep it up at least until December and then take a little break.
Look, Sherry Ann, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, as I kind of knew it would be. Um, there's not much more I can say more than thank you so much for your time. I'm envying you that you're now going out into the sunshine. We've got the Mickey Mouse sunshine here. It's we're celebrating the fact that it's 18 degrees.
Hey,
Um,
okay.
yeah. Don't worry. It peaked out at 20 this morning and it's gone down. But
That's
Sherry Ann,
quite good. I'm just trying to look for the weather to tell you what
no,
we've
we don't
got.
want to know. We don't want to know.
95 degrees.
Yeah,
And
see, I told you we didn't want to know. Um, so thank you so much for your time. It's been
yeah,
an
well,
absolute pleasure. And what I will do is I'll make sure that when we do put the video up, we'll put up the link to your YouTube channel where people can see all the shows of what you've done before
thank
and catch up with you on your Facebook page. Just remind us of your Facebook pages right now.
you. Women on the Crossroads group. Um, just women on the crossroads, not at the crossroads, on the crossroads. And then Sherry Ann Dixon is the main one. My name, Sherry Ann Dixon. I take my name everywhere so no people don't forget me. I don't want no other name. I want that one.
That will
So
never
yeah.
happen. Ladies and gentlemen, look, as I said before, it was an absolute pleasure. And I know that a lot of you will really enjoy listening to Sherry Ann Dixon, someone who we've known and has been an integral part of the community here in London, who's now moved out to Guyana and doing her due. And these are the sort of caliber of people that we do have in our communities who are doing strong and useful work. And I can say without any doubt that one of the people who've been a great influence, certainly on me and the things that I do and the way I do some of the stuff I do, and we thank her. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Paul Lawrence on People Talk One-on-One Special. Thank you very much.